Welcome to Minded People, the podcast with me, Fokus. I'm a drum and bass artist with over 25 years of experience in the world of underground music. But more importantly, I'm a huge fan of MCs. That's my passion. And in this podcast, I explore it from all angles: the culture, the craft, the conversation. So if you love MCs or you're curious and want to find out more, then this is the podcast for you. Shout to my Minded People locked in. Back with another Minded People Shorts. A shorter, punchier episode where I just talk off the head really about a particular subject. And this one is about the creative process. Now, I'm fascinated by creativity. And I know it's easy for us to think of some people are creatives. You know, if you're a musician, if you're a painter, if you're an artist, for instance, yeah, you're a creative person. But whilst I do use that language myself when I talk about creatives and creative people, I truly believe that all humans have the ability to create. So please don't ever think, if you listen to this podcast and you think, oh, I'd love to give MCing a go, or I'd love to be a DJ or make music or write something, poetry, a book, literature, whatever, words, there's nothing stopping you, because we are intrinsically all creative people. Just think about it. Any time that you solve a problem in your life, whatever it could be, if it's at work, if it's in your personal life, you are tapping into creativity. You're creating a solution to that problem. And that's what humans do. I know now we've got tools like ChatGPT and AI and all these kind of things that help us solve these problems and arguably solve it for us and take away that kind of element of creative sovereignty. But that's a topic for another day and another short possibly. But yeah, humans are creative at our core. And the process of creativity for me is something very magical indeed, because you are essentially tapping into something within inside of you that you don't know where it is. It's a bit like a spirit, isn't it? You don't know where it is. You can't really say, oh, that's where my creativity is. You can't see it. You can't touch it, but you know that it's there. You can feel it. And when you're able to tap into it, magical things can happen. But it's a weird one, because sometimes you can't tap into it. And again, this is okay. I think there's this myth. There's definitely a myth, actually, because I've spoken to people who I do mentoring and coaching work with. I've spoken to them and they're like, oh, you know, I just wish I was more like naturally creative, or, you know, so-and-so's got this, they've just got a natural ability to write music. But that in itself is a myth. It's not true. The whole thing around natural ability, really, all someone generally tends to mean when you break it down is that that person has spent more time repeating a certain process, a certain set of steps to get the result they want. Someone who you deem to be naturally creative, essentially, I get it, like there's more to it, and I'm more than happy to go deeper into this, but for the purpose of this being a short and not like an hour-long episode, then that person is just spending more time showing up to allow the creativity to flourish. Because what I was saying is that it's a myth that every time you sit down to create, you always create. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And I'm I'm fully talking from experience, mine and other people's, but also this is a subject that I love reading about. There's some fantastic books out there, which I will do a different episode on, books around creativity. But Elizabeth Gilbert and Rick Rubin are just two people that have written fantastic books about creativity. And really what the essence of it is that it's a creative spirit. Like I said, it's a spirit that lies inside of us. And sometimes the spirit doesn't want to come out to play. And some of what I'm saying here is my kind of take on some of these amazing books that I've read and conversations that I've had. So this is just me throwing it together. But this is the way that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about it. And I love this. So think of creativity as a magical spiritual force. And you could almost give it an identity if you want, like what it could look like, whatever. But Imagine you're sitting at your desk. I'm in the studio, literally where I am now. I'm in the studio at the desk, and I'm here to write some bars for a track. Now, sometimes the creative spirit, let's call it, creativity, will float in through the window, and it wants to flirt with me. And if I'm here and making it attractive for the creative spirit to want to flirt with me, then that day we might connect and something really cool could happen. And that's when you feel like you're in that state of flow and the pen's just moving across the page and it feels quite effortless and light. And it's like, yeah, this is really moving. This is really happening. That's what people think like natural creativity is, that natural ability in inverted commas. But the other side of the coin, and this is the reality of it, that day where it all clicked into place and me and creativity flirted together, there could have been a week, 2 weeks, a month, I don't know the time period, where I'm coming into the studio, the pen ain't moving, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling blocked, can't really be asked. But that's the important time because you need to keep showing up so that the day that creativity wants to flirt with you, you're here. Just imagine I've had a week where I keep coming to the studio and it's just not working. I'm getting pissed off. It feels hard. It feels like that grinding process. And then you stop. You think, fuck this, right? I'm just going to stop. I'm going to give up. I'm going to have a week off. What if that next morning was the morning where creativity wants to flirt and it wants to come into the studio and help my pen glide across the page and I'm not here? Then creativity is going to be like, what? He's not even here. I thought he wanted to create, but he's not here. So I'll float off and go and visit someone else. And that's what I love, this concept that you need to show up in order to connect with creativity, of course. If you're not here, then it ain't going to happen, right? I suppose that kind of sounds obvious, but just because you're here doesn't mean it's going to happen either. So that's why we need to have some skin in the game. And some of that is discipline. Some of that is belief. And also it's like, it can help to not take it too flipping seriously. Yes, especially if you make money from your art and your whatever it is you create. I get that there's external pressures around it. And that, again, that's a different conversation maybe. But is it really that flipping serious? Because that seriousness and that desperation and that thought that it has to be so tough and so hard and, oh God, like torture creating the thing. Why would someone want to come and flirt with you if you just sit in your creative space, in your studio, moaning about it being tough and rubbing your head and grinding it out and torturing yourself? This notion of like the tortured soul, the tortured artist. Who's going to want to flirt with that? Do you know what I mean? So you need to make it attractive to the creative spirit. So yeah, I'm hoping this makes sense. And what I love about it is that when you connect with that creativity, it's such an amazing feeling. Whether you're a musician or an artist or you do something else with your life, you know what it's like to solve that problem, to get into that state of flow. And magical things can happen, like I say, but you need to keep showing up, be disciplined around it, but not take it too seriously. Be ready to flirt with creativity. So what would you do? What would you do if you were more creative? What kind of things appeal to you that you've never done because you thought, oh, I'm just not a creative person? Honestly, that is bullshit. You could do whatever you want. You could pick up a pen and write. You could draw. Do you know what I like doing as well? And this make you laugh, but in recent times, I've discovered adult. Well, I say adult. That makes it sound like they're going to be some dodgy like pornography type thing, which it isn't. Adult colouring books. They're like geometric patterns, and that could be a really dodgy adult colouring book. Yeah, geometric patterns and this kind of thing, or lots of like intricate little designs, and I sit there with colouring pencils, and I got really into it, like especially sitting in the garden in the summer, colouring in. That's creativity. It doesn't have to lead somewhere. It doesn't have to be this thing that takes over your life or you have to turn it into a career. Just enjoy creating something. Maybe you've always wanted to write a poem. Maybe you enjoyed English at school, and then as you've got older, society and societal norms and all this other conditioning bullshit has beat it out of you, and you're like, no, I cannot do that. That's a waste of time. I've got work to do. I've got a family to raise. I've got this and that. Yeah, of course you have. You have got all those responsibilities, but that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy creativity. You have just as much right to flirt with creativity as anyone else on the planet. So I think a big part of this, and this is what a wonderful mentor I worked with, big up Fiona, we talked a lot about this, and a big part of this is giving yourself permission. And I think it applies to creativity as much as anything else. Give yourself permission to create. It's not selfish, because the elevation, the uplift in your mood and your day-to-day feeling will show up when you do connect with your creativity. It just resonates, it uplifts, it opens you up. And that can only be a good thing. The ripple effect of that into the rest of your life, whatever that may be, your family, your career, your relationships, personal passions, whatever, it can only be a good thing. Give yourself permission. And I'm not saying you have to go phone your boss now and quit your job to go and live in a cave and write poems. Everyone wants to do this extreme version. I've got to do 10 hours a day. No, just get up 10 minutes earlier, get yourself a nice little notebook and write for 10 minutes. Do that every day. And I could almost guarantee you that you will get to flirt with creativity at some point. It could be day one. It could be day 1001. I don't know. But if you're not sitting there ready to connect, then it definitely won't happen then. So give yourself permission and enjoy it. Make it light. Make it uplifting. It doesn't have to be this deep, tragic, torturous thing. That's a whole nother part of it that we could talk about, and I'll dip into that another time. But keep it light. Smile. Keep coming back to that. How can I make this environment, as in terms of the space that you're in, but also your own internal environment in terms of your mood and your being, how can I make this attractive in order for creativity to want to come and flirt? And yeah, man. So I'm going to leave it there. What's that one thing that you've been putting off because you don't feel like you've got permission to create, or you think it's selfish to take time away from other people to go and do that creative thing? If there are no rules, if there are no limits, which, by the way, there aren't, then what would you do? I'd love to know. Hit me up. The Instagram is at MikeMindedPeople. You can also catch me at MC Fokus, Fokus, and you can do it old school and just email me. Email me some stuff. I'd love to hear from people on the email, hello@mikemindedpeople.com. What would you do if there were no limits to your creativity? Keep it locked for another shorts. And yeah, in the meantime, go and get creative.